Hi. I went to Shanghai in the summer of 2006 to teach English. When I landed, I was tired, disoriented, and really hungry. The first thing I did when I landed in Shanghai was to ask my school admin head to take me to a Chinese restaurant to eat something. The food was nothing similar to the Indian Chinese that I'd had back home. It was salty and really spicy. I wanted some water, but I just could not remember the word for water. Rapid hand gestures got me nowhere. I didn't know what to do. I was frustrated. No, I had not scaled the Great Wall without a language barrier. I had learned Mandarin with Tony Wu, a third-generation Mandarin Chinese person. He would sit with me for 40 hours before I went to Shanghai, teaching me about 300 plus words. When he was sure that I had learned all the vocabulary that he had to teach me, he set me free to go to Shanghai and make new friends. After spectacularly failing at my first acid test, I realized that I had to start learning Mandarin from scratch. Few of Shanghai's 18 million people actually spoke English, which is why I learned not in a classroom, but by speaking to people in everyday life. I would walk up to a shop, look at the shopkeeper, point to an apple, and say, "Ping guo," and I would repeat after him, "Ping guo, Ping guo," and that's how I learned Mandarin. Word associations also helped me to learn the language. The Mandarin word to sleep is shui jiao. Doesn't it sound really similar to sui jiao, the Gujarati word for to sleep? Similar parallels can also be drawn for the Mandarin word cha, which is tea, and the Hindi word chai. Learning by doing is how we learn all our skills. It's important to apply the skill that we have learned so that we really hone it in. Whether it's that we learn to walk by walking, or we learn to tie our shoelaces or drive a car, all the skills that we learn throughout our lives are learned by actually doing them. Think of any skill that you have learned, whether it's diving to the depths of the ocean, learning to drive a car, learning to cook, or to dance. We learn all these skills by applying them, by engaging with them, and involving ourselves in them. That's why when I started Inchin Closer, a Mandarin language and cultural consultancy I started 10 years ago in Mumbai, I decided that my students would learn by applying the language and not by just learning the language by rote, kind of like monkeys. I therefore developed course material, teaching techniques, and testing mechanisms so that my students would actually be able to speak the language. Role plays really helped us. Simulations in classrooms help our students to understand how they would actually be in a situation in Shanghai, or in any part of China for that matter. They learn the vocabulary and the grammar taught in class, but they apply it to sentences and conversations that we simulate for them. This helps them make the language a little bit their own and makes the language a little bit more natural for them to speak. One of the most common simulations that we have is of a Mr. and Mrs. Mehta, a typical Indian Gujarati couple who find themselves in Shanghai. Mr. and Mrs. Mehta have gone to China on business, but they've run out of theplas. So what do? But they're invited by their Chinese colleague, Mr. Wang Wei, to go to a Chinese restaurant and try some of the local cuisine. They're stuck, they're vegetarian, but they don't know how to say that. This is a situation that we find many of our students in, which is why we teach this very popular cult phrase. 我吃素. You can repeat after me. 我吃素. Try it once more, louder this time. 我吃素. Very good. Early on, I also realized that we had a lot of diamond merchant students. And they wanted to go to China predominantly for one reason. They wanted to understand what two Chinese businessmen were saying when they were conversing with each other. My student once told me, he said that if I can understand the base cost of what these two men are saying in Mandarin, I can trust the Chinese. I won't feel cheated, and I can do business with confidence in China. It is therefore that we teach numbers from 1 to 1 billion. So it doesn't matter whether you're dealing in belt buckles or in diamonds. You're still able to understand the base cost of a product. Indians are also notorious bargainers. We love a great bargain, whether it's buying a fake watch or a pair of the latest Nike. We feel that if we're in China, the price of a product has to be ridiculously cheap. That is why we also teach our students how to say, it's too expensive. You can repeat after me, 太贵了.
太贵了.
Once more, louder this time. 太贵了.
太贵了.
Awesome, good job. Teachers often learn from our students as well. The way to say, can I ask you a question, is 我要问你. One day, we had a student who went to Shanghai and asked a lady. He should have said, 我要问你. But instead, what he said was, 我要问你. Yes, you did hear that tonal difference. It's the difference between 1 and 1. It made a difference between him saying, can I kiss you? Instead of saying, can I ask you a question? The girl that he said this to was quite flabbergasted, like you can imagine. But she quickly understood that he was a student and forgave him. Luckily, he learned his lesson quite quickly. Because Mandarin is a tonal language, we have a lot of students, we have native Chinese teachers that come into our classrooms to teach the language. We also invite a lot of visiting faculty, visiting students, businessmen, friends to come into our classrooms. This helps our students to interact with a plethora of different people so that they get an idea of how to speak under different circumstances and in different situations, because not everybody uses the language in the same way. This is similar to what we do at BIS as well. We bring in our parents to come and teach us different skill sets, to teach us basic skill sets. I remember my mom coming in to teach us how to stitch a button on. A basic skill set I am sure that many of my school friends have found to good use when we lived abroad and alone in different parts of the world. As we progress at Inchin Closer, I have introduced fun, innovative, and interactive ways to include culture as part of the classes as well. So we're not only teaching language, but we're also teaching Mandarin culture. One of the most popular things to do is to take our students to the Chinese temple at Dockyard Road. Meeting Chinese people, interacting with the locals, getting to see a lion dance, fireworks, loud cymbals clanging, and the wishes of a happy new year filled with joy and prosperity is a great way for the students to see a little bit of China in Bombay. We also have Mahjong, which is a Chinese-style game with characters on it. And it's played very similar to the way Teen Patti is played. We ended up playing it this Diwali instead of Teen Patti, and our students loved it because they could not only learn Mandarin characters in a fun and more competitive way. Karaoke nights are also really popular with our students because they get to learn Mandarin pronunciations in a way that is a lot more fun than just repeating it in class. So yes, experiential learning is an important component of learning any new skill. No, Mandarin is not a difficult language to learn. It is not easier if you've learned it as a kid. Adults are able to do a pretty good job as well. And yes, if you do speak Mandarin and Hindi, you're able to speak to more than half the world's population. So this new year, what new skill are you going to inch towards?